October 27, 2025. Caribbean Sea. 2 days ago, the most powerful warship ever built by the United States Navy changed course. Without fanfare, without headlines, the USS Gerald R. Ford, a 100,000-ton carrier city at sea, received a simple order: head south. That phrase, routine on paper, sent ripples across oceans. The Ford was leaving the calm predictability of the Mediterranean and steering toward a coastline charged with tension, politics, and risk. Almost simultaneously, one of its escort ships, the destroyer USS Gravely, was spotted docking in Trinidad and Tobago, less than 8 miles from Venezuelan shores. Within hours, the Venezuelan government announced that several foreign operatives had been captured, men allegedly connected to U.S. intelligence, accused of plotting destabilization. The timing was too precise to ignore. Was this coincidence or choreography? Somewhere in the quiet waters of the Caribbean, pieces were beginning to move. For decades, the Caribbean Sea was seen as a tranquil backwater of global power, a region overshadowed by Middle Eastern wars and Pacific rivalries. But in recent years, the balance began to shift. Energy routes, narcotics corridors, and new military partnerships turned the region into a silent arena where influence once again mattered. Now, the arrival of the USS Gerald R. Ford, the largest and most advanced aircraft carrier in history, marks a new chapter. It's not a visit, it's a statement. Presence is power, and this time, that power is sailing closer than anyone expected. In late October of 2025, the Ford and its carrier strike group were conducting routine operations with NATO allies in the Mediterranean. Its air wing trained daily, F-18 Super Hornets carving vapor trails over calm blue water. The mission was stability, predictability. But then, orders shifted. The Pentagon confirmed the redeployment. The Ford would now operate under U.S. Southern Command, the branch responsible for Latin America and the Caribbean. The announcement seemed procedural, but for analysts, it signaled something deeper: a sudden reorientation of American naval focus toward the Western Hemisphere. The move was subtle, but the implications were massive. You don't send the world's most expensive, most capable warship into a politically sensitive region unless you want to be seen. The Gerald R. Ford isn't just another ship. It is a moving fortress, an airport, and a network of sensors, reactors, and human precision compressed into one steel body. From bow to stern, it measures over 1,000 feet, displacing more mass than any floating structure on Earth. On its deck, 75 aircraft sit ready: Super Hornets, Hawkeye early warning planes, and MH-60 Seahawk helicopters, their rotors folded tight, engines waiting. Below, 4,500 sailors live inside a labyrinth of steel: engineers, aviators, medics, cooks, and analysts. Together they sustain a floating ecosystem that can operate indefinitely. Its twin nuclear reactors can power it around the planet for over 2 decades without refueling. When it moves, it carries the attention of nations. A carrier strike group doesn't travel alone. Around the Ford, a ring of Arleigh Burke-class destroyers sails in tight formation. Ships like the Winston Churchill, Bainbridge, Mayan, and Gravely, each equipped with the Aegis combat system, radar arrays capable of tracking hundreds of aerial targets, and missile cells ready to respond in seconds. Beneath them, somewhere in the darkness, a Virginia-class nuclear submarine follows silently, unseen, listening, protecting. Together, they form a mobile fortress, an integrated web of sensors, weapons, and human judgment stretching across hundreds of miles of ocean. Wherever this group sails, nothing moves unnoticed. When the Gravely docked in Trinidad and Tobago, it seemed routine, a port call, a friendly visit. But for those watching, the symbolism was unmistakable. From its position, the destroyer's radar could scan deep into Venezuelan airspace. Within hours, Caracas announced the arrest of alleged foreign operatives, accusing them of plotting internal sabotage. 2 events, separate yet synchronized, unfolding within the same tide of time. The official statements were cautious, but beneath them, the logic of deterrence was in motion. Washington called the deployment routine. Analysts called it strategic pressure. 2 versions of the same reality, one public, one deliberate. Inside the Pentagon, officials emphasized stability. They spoke of regional cooperation, shared training, freedom of navigation. The language was familiar, diplomatic, rehearsed. But in the war rooms and command centers, planners saw the map differently. They looked at the Caribbean as a corridor, one that connects the Gulf of Mexico, the Panama Canal, and the northern shores of South America. In a world of shifting alliances and unpredictable flashpoints, that corridor has regained strategic value. And the presence of a U.S. carrier strike group there changes every equation. From the flight deck of the Ford, the view is endless. Steel, water, and sky blur together. Pilots run through checklists. The air smells of jet fuel and salt. Every takeoff, every landing, is a ballet of precision, a coordination of human skill and digital control. Above the ship, Hawkeye radar planes orbit at high altitude, scanning for anomalies across thousands of miles. Below them, helicopters fan out, dropping sonar buoys and mapping the undersea terrain. Data streams through encrypted networks back to the carrier's Combat Information Center, a room glowing with monitors, where dozens of officers track every movement on, above, and beneath the surface. It's a world that never sleeps, where silence is not peace but readiness. The Ford's journey south is being watched by more than just satellites. Across the region, governments are recalibrating. In Caracas, the tone hardens. State television frames the movement as provocation, as proof of foreign interference. In Washington, press briefings speak of regional partnership and cooperative security. The gap between language and reality widens, filled with speculation, signals, and carefully worded denials. But one truth remains. The most advanced carrier on Earth is moving toward one of the most politically charged coastlines in the Western Hemisphere, and every mile it travels carries weight. In geopolitical terms, presence equals intent, and intent, when backed by a 100,000-ton nuclear-powered symbol of force, rarely goes unnoticed. The Ford does not have to act, it only has to exist, close enough to remind, distant enough to deny escalation. For its crew, life continues in rhythm. Maintenance checks, training sorties, briefings. But beneath the routine lies awareness. They know that somewhere out there, beyond the horizon, they are being watched just as closely as they watch others. That is the paradox of deterrence. Calm on the surface, tension beneath every wave. As night falls over the Caribbean, the ship's lights trace a faint silhouette across black water. On radar, its presence is unmistakable, a heartbeat of steel and power, moving through a sea once thought quiet. From distant coasts, its reflection flickers on television screens and satellite feeds. Governments issue statements. Analysts speculate. The questions multiply. Is this preparation? Is this warning? Or is it simply a reminder that the balance of power never rests, and even silence at sea can speak volumes? Because in the language of geopolitics, presence is not just posture, it is message. And right now, that message is sailing south, slow, deliberate, and impossible to ignore. As dawn breaks over the Caribbean, the sky above the USS Gerald R. Ford glows faintly pink, but the ship itself moves in silence. There is no fanfare, no sound beyond the low hum of turbines, and the steady rhythm of the ocean. The crew knows this stillness well. It is the calm before visibility, before radar pings begin to bounce, before jets light their engines, before the world realizes how close power can come without saying a word. Thousands of miles away, news outlets in Caracas begin their morning broadcasts. Anchors speak with urgency. They show footage of masked men being led into custody, claiming they were part of a foreign plot. Across the bottom of the screen runs a single question. Is this connected to the movements of the U.S. Navy? The government of Nicolas Maduro insists it is. Intelligence officials release vague details, claiming evidence of sabotage plans, encrypted messages, and surveillance equipment. Whether any of it is true doesn't matter. What matters is the narrative, one that paints Venezuela as a nation under threat, and the presence of the Gerald R. Ford as proof of external pressure. In Washington, the tone is colder, more controlled. Officials repeat the same phrases: freedom of navigation, cooperative exercises, regional stability. They describe the carrier's mission as routine. But behind closed doors, analysts at the Pentagon and Southern Command examine data streams in real time. Patterns of radar returns, satellite images of airfields, naval movements near the Venezuelan coast. The Caribbean, once a forgotten flank, has become an active theater of information. Every fishing vessel could be a signal source, every transmission a question mark. For the sailors aboard the Ford, this geopolitical tension exists in briefings, not in their daily rhythm. Yet the change is felt. Communications tighten. Drone flights extend farther south. The ship's combat information center glows brighter through the night. On giant screens, the sea is no longer blue. It's a digital grid pulsing with tracks and identifiers. Each contact on that grid tells a story. Civilian cargo ships, Venezuelan patrol boats, unidentified aircraft skirting radar range. Somewhere in that pattern could lie a misunderstanding that ignites something larger. And that is why the Ford is here. To exist between perception and prevention. To make sure miscalculation never becomes action. Far below the waves, in the black silence of the deep, a Virginia-class submarine shadows the strike group. Its sensors listen to the ocean's whispers. Engine frequencies, propeller patterns, bursts of sonar. It maps everything, unseen and unheard. On its control deck, officers speak softly, their screens alive with the motion of ships that will never see them. The carrier above may project presence, but it is the submarine that defines awareness. Together, they form the visible and invisible halves of deterrence. At the same time, smaller movements ripple through the region. In Curacao, U.S. Air Force logistics planes refuel and depart toward southern routes. In Colombia, naval observers begin to coordinate data exchange. Brazil releases a neutral statement calling for calm. Every word is measured, every silence too. The Caribbean, once overlooked, is now a chessboard lit by the glow of global attention. For ordinary citizens across the islands, life goes on. Fishermen casting nets at dawn, cargo workers unloading containers in the heat. They look out at the horizon and sometimes glimpse the gray outline of a warship, distant and unmoving. To them it is a silhouette, a shape against the light. But in that shape, entire strategies converge. It is the embodiment of distance and proximity at once, close enough to feel, too far to touch. On board the Ford, the air wing prepares for flight operations. Deck crews in colored vests line up, hands moving in silent choreography. Jet engines ignite, their roar echoing across steel. One by one, aircraft accelerate down the deck and rise into the morning sky. From the sea, it looks like spectacle. From inside, it is procedure. Each launch is part of the same ritual of readiness that defines naval power. Analysts often describe a carrier strike group as a show of force, but that description misses the deeper layer. Force is not only in missiles or aircraft, it lies in the message. The Ford's presence off South America tells allies and adversaries alike that the United States has turned its eyes west again, toward its own hemisphere, toward waters once calm and now contested. It is not invasion, not confrontation, but a signal. The kind of signal that governments hear even when nothing is said aloud. By nightfall, the sea turns black again. The Ford's deck glows under dim red lights. Inside the ship, radar operators watch green echoes slide across their screens. The bridge stays quiet. Aboard, life is disciplined. Meals, shifts, drills, maintenance. Yet everyone senses that what they do now will ripple outward. Somewhere, in offices in Caracas, in conference rooms in Washington, and in observation posts across the region, the carrier's coordinates are being discussed. Its speed, its heading, its silence. A few hundred miles away, in Venezuelan airspace, two Su-30 fighters take off for a patrol. Their radar sweeps across the sea, briefly touching the invisible envelope of the U.S. strike group. Inside the Ford's operations center, alarms do not sound, but screens adjust. Identification routines engage automatically. It is not confrontation, it is choreography, a dance of awareness. The pilots never see the carrier, and the carrier never acknowledges them. Yet both sides understand the meaning of distance measured in radar pings. As the world watches, the narrative splits again. State television in Caracas warns of encirclement. In Washington, press statements call for dialogue and cooperation. The same event, told in two languages, two realities. And between those realities sails the Gerald R. Ford, steady, deliberate, a vessel of both metal and message. What happens next is uncertain. The ship may continue south, conducting joint drills, or it may linger, its presence alone enough to shift behavior. Perhaps in a few weeks it will return north, mission unspoken, purpose achieved through inertia. Or perhaps it will mark the start of a longer posture, a reminder that no coastline is too distant for attention. For the men and women aboard, the politics are distant noise. What matters is precision, keeping engines steady, aircraft serviced, systems aligned. Yet beneath that discipline lies a shared awareness, They are not simply moving through water, they are moving through history. The Gerald R. Ford carries not just steel, jets, and sailors, but the weight of perception. Every signal it emits, every mile it travels, shapes the way nations see the world. In the end, that is what power has become. Not destruction, but direction. Not war, but the shadow of war, carefully projected, perfectly measured. The Ford sails onward through the Caribbean night, her wake glowing faintly in the moonlight. No shots fired, no declarations made, only presence, heavy, deliberate, and understood by all who watch. Because in this era, control is not taken by force, it is maintained by being seen. And across the still surface of the Caribbean, that presence now moves, steady, silent, undeniable.